Let me be
In this episode, we are full on spoilers for both the books and the show.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Max.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome to What the Adaptation. And it's our first time live. Welcome to 2024, too. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
We're short one person. We've got so many technical difficulties, so our guest is going to be away until he's able to join us. But we do have a returning person. Rebecca, how have you been?
Okay. Crazy, but pretty good.
How's your channel going?
Have not worked on that since, I don't know. Basically had like a lot of issues with copyright, not being able to post videos during the run of season 2 for the Wheel of Time. And that was a big discouragement. So I'm just on a break. On a break.
I know the feeling. Max, how you doing tonight?
Present.
Present. So how's everybody's ready for this live stream? Wow, I don't know what to do. I'll just treat it like a normal. We're talking about season 3 of The Expanse, episode 1, Fight or Flight. Max, what can you tell us about this episode?
Oh boy. Well, actually, I haven't even got that far yet.
This is what happens when we do it live.
Exactly.
Bracket, we'll do it live.
Yep.
Bear with us, everybody. This is our first time trying this live, so.
Yeah, I was doing all the tech stuff on the side. Forgot all about that.
Max is the busy guy tonight, so.
Oh yeah.
He is the man in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
It was directed by Breck Eisner. Let's see. Looks like
frequent director for The Expanse.
Yes.
Looks like he's directed shows like The Last Witch Hunter, The Crazies, Fear Itself, The Brave. One I know didn't know he would direct was Sahara, which is another book adaptation of Clive Cussler's Sahara, which is
one we should consider.
Not considered a great adaptation. Whether that's his fault is a different matter.
Fair.
Let's see. Well, obviously written by the authors of the book, sorta. Mark Ferguson, Frank Daniel Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Interesting.
And let's see. I don't know which one of those is actually not the writers here.
So, what did everybody think of this particular episode? Rebecca?
It was funny because I was, as I was watching it, I didn't leave myself enough time to like go back and watch like the last episode of season 2 again, but I wished I had, because for like a season opener, I felt like we were just like right in it in a way, like we're like in the middle, and maybe it's just because of like it is kind of adapting like sort of later, middle to later like book 2 material, so it's not like the start of a book content, so just kind of felt like we're like right in the middle of it, which is interesting for a season opener.
Yeah.
Oh, look who's here.
Oh yay,
He made it. Welcome, Mitch. You hear us this time?
Oh, that's
We'll
not
give him a second.
looking good.
So, I like the episode. There are some things that I did not like. One big thing I did not like. And it kind of carries on throughout the entire season. There's not so much. I'm not always opposed to changes. Changes need to happen. The changes that bother me is a whole number of changes where it's reversals, where it will start, the books will have the going one way, like in this case, well, I'll talk about it in specific. It'll go one way, and then the show does the exact opposite. And I'm just like, but somehow they still manage to tell the same general story. So it doesn't bother me too badly.
Hi, Mitch. Bye, Mitch. I don't think you can hear us. This is the problem. You can hear, right?
Yeah, that was the problem he had. He couldn't hear.
Yeah.
So why don't we start off with jump into our questions, Max?
Yep.
And I'm going to message him, see if I can help him.
Well, the first question of the night is, what has changed from the source material? Those changes impact your enjoyment of this episode of The Expanse?
Oh, okay. All right. So I guess I'll start.
Sure.
All right. So, I mean, for me, I think one of the biggest things, and this kind of carries over from previous season, we're kind of seeing the fallout of Naomi. She's revealed that she's given the protomolecule to Fred Johnson. So this is different.
Oops.
What?
Oops. Sorry. Go ahead. Just keep going. That was something that fell in my room.
Okay, cool. Anyway, so this is different because, I mean, in the books, Fred still has a sample of the protomolecule, but it wasn't like a unilateral decision that Naomi made. This was just, the decision that the crew made.
Yeah.
So it was more just like, okay, this was how they reasoned out what was the best thing to do. And here you're just sort of seeing like the sort of follow through of that, which is that there's conflict among the crew. They're having this sort of, it introduces the question, like, are they really like a family as they've kind of seen themselves or not? And then, I mean, I feel like it just kind of like expands from there, so this kind of one decision to make it something that Naomi does unilaterally, there's conflict among the crew. And then we also have, I think they're spending more time on Fred, giving him a little bit more moral ambiguity, giving the audience more of a reason to question him. In the book, it's primarily like Holden that's questioning, like whether he's a safe person. Like, can we trust him? And I think as I was reading the book, I kind of was looking at Holden as being like paranoid, right? Like it didn't really seem like there was a strong enough reason for Holden to be suspecting Fred. It seemed like his paranoia about the protomolecule was like driving that. So it was more of a characterization of him than it was like a characterization of Fred. So there's more, I just think, ambiguity there. And, here's the thing I think about these kinds of decisions. It is sometimes hard to see it play out this way, like when there's like conflict between characters that doesn't exist in the source material. There's like new conflict, because the instinct sometimes as we're watching is to feel more uncomfortable because these are characters we like. We don't want them to be like mad at each other. So it feels more uncomfortable to watch that. But it kind of makes sense in a storytelling format where you have to have a more clear conflict, a more clear like questions that are being asked in an episode. A book doesn't have that same structure. It doesn't require that there be that level of conflict and those kinds of questions being asked in a distinct chunk of time, right? You can space it out over a longer period of time. You can have chunks where there's not that clear kind of like sectioned off conflicts and questions. So it makes sense to me, why this is being kind of added in. More characterization for Naomi, more characterization for Fred, more of a clear conflict, in an episode or multiple episodes really, because it's ongoing. But yeah, it's been uncomfortable to watch at the same time, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it is definitely uncomfortable. The complaint that I was going to bring up a bit ago was The one that really bugged me is I don't like the way they've treated Naomi in this episode at all. Okay. In the book, the conflict that's taking place at about this time is Holden being too much like Miller and Naomi leaving him over that.
Right.
On the show, Naomi's the bad guy. We all of a sudden, Naomi's the bad guy. And they continue it through the entire episode, even when everybody decides to go to Io, because I don't see Naomi. My serious dislike with this is Naomi objecting to going to Io to look for May. Of anyone on the crew, who's going to want to go help somebody find their baby?
Yeah, that's fair.
Spoilers. You know, she's the last person, I think, to object. I think the person who should object would have been Holden, because we've got Amos, who's a big softie when it comes to kids. Everything is about, he's the one who's most about, let's find that baby. And Alex, he's the guy, he's a guy, but he's the mother. He's the most maternal character on that crew, on looking at trying to keep everybody's interpersonal relationships, making sure everybody's okay, and all of that stuff. And he just got done sending a message to his wife and kid. He's not going to say no. The only one who would say no would be Holden, but here they have it all Holden's idea.
But you know, I don't think Holden would say no either. I see your point though about Naomi. I'm not sure any of them should say no.
I think they're propping Holden up at the expense of Naomi in this episode.
Yeah.
And
I see your point.
Changes.
Like in the book, the conflict is that Naomi is mad at Holden because Holden's kind of like, he's letting his like paranoia like really get to him, and it's changing his behavior. He's not quite acting like himself because he's terrified. And so he's the one who's kind of behaving erratically. And so she's mad at him, and it's flipped around on her. Everyone's mad at Naomi instead. So I think I agree with the point about it doesn't necessarily make sense for Naomi to say no to Io. But I don't think it makes sense for any of them to say no, particularly. Like if I just think about I don't think it makes sense for Holden to say no. I don't think it makes sense for any of them.
No, but if anybody on the crew had to say no, it would have to be Holden.
You could make it so Holden was, again, if you wanted to bring back in the terror about the protomolecule, and he doesn't want to do it because there's protomolecule stuff on Io, and let's mess with that. Okay. He could like have a freak out and then bring himself around when no, it's the right thing to do. Freak out and then come around to it. I could see that.
Go ahead, Max. I'll let Max.
Yeah, let's hear Max about all this stuff.
I'm like, pretty much touched everything, and these were complaints I had in the first season. Like they add these interpersonal conflicts that weren't really in the book as nearly as much, and they keep doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
because it makes TV. It's drama.
It's TV. I think you need some of that, like in an episode, right? Like I don't know if you guys listen to Wheel Takes Pod at all, but like hearing like Allie and Gus, especially Allie, talk about like just writing for TV and like the kind of like structure you have to have in a TV episode. Like it makes it more clear to me too. Like the idea of having like an episode question. Like there's got to be a question of the episode, and like that you need a conflict for there to be an episode question, whereas like books don't have that. You can have one for the whole book, you can have multiple questions for the whole book, but it's not like you have to have a chapter question. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, it's just different. So I think that's why there ends up being more of these kind of conflicts, but then it's still fair to say like, okay, but why this conflict, and why is this character behaving this way, and stuff like that.
No, I can see a big part of it is like this show originally was on sci-fi, and what were some of the biggest shows? Battlestar Galactica, Stargate Universe. That wasn't their biggest show, but interpersonal conflict was huge in those. And why wouldn't they take that formula that worked in that show that made it popular?
Especially since it's by its nature a rather gritty as they put it for Stargate Universe and BSG. Those were always called gritty, you know, and by its nature, the Expanse fits that, I think.
And you're basically in a submarine in space.
Yeah.
People are going to be
there was some changes I liked. Like, I really enjoyed, it's more a scene that I'll bring up again later, but that moment between Naomi and Prax when she's having to change the transponder and they comes up with the name, and Pinus Cortata is probably the best metaphor for this crew in a lot of ways, you know, because it's one of those plants that those pine cones, the seeds don't come out of the pine cones until they've been heated typically through fire. It takes that, you know, high temperature. And so without fire, they don't live. And they're kind of an actual real world phoenix. And there's a lot of plants that are like that. And the phoenix image, you know, really does fit, you know, this crew, because they've come out of the fire how many times now?
Yeah.
And they keep thriving and surviving, and it's just I got a little nitpick, and it's with the book actually, and it's a change that I like on the show. The ships launch missiles on the show, but they launch torpedoes in the book. Torpedoes travel through water, missiles travel through air and vacuum. But torpedoes specifically travel through water and use propellers to move, whereas a rocket, a missile, uses an engine out the back, shooting stuff out the back. I'm pedantic. Yes, I know.
We need a
change me to the geeky
patented question. We need a patented name specifically for just Glenn's nitpicks. Like, this is like what, maybe like a special segment where we just like rapid fire, just like Glenn shoots out the nitpicks.
I usually don't have that many. Well, maybe sometimes.
No, but
depends on the show.
Like the little minute things about whether we're calling something a torpedo or a missile. Okay. Anyway, all right. What else?
I don't know if it's a change, but I always seem to like the scenes where you have characters like Avslora, and I can't remember that guy's name for the life of me. Just suffering. I don't know. I just like that.
Kotier?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not really a change, but like, it's not really a change. It's just kind of made a little bit of change, but not much.
Well, he has a bad season.
Yeah. If anything, she's complaining more.
You're right. It's not exactly a change, but like they have that moment where they kind of like linger on the two of them, like looking at each other, like through the glass.
Don't forget after the don't forget your antibiotics.
Yeah.
That
was kind of added, enhanced a bit. That was nice. I like that.
It's kind of like Miller. When he's having a bad day, I'm enjoying it.
So
when Miller's having a bad day, I'm enjoying it. I don't know why.
There's that. Another change they added was that great sequence that you knew had to be done on TV. As soon as Bobby starts going out to the ship, you know she's going to lose her grip and tumble to the back and almost get nailed by the drive plume.
Yeah,
they had to do that, and at first I was like, but then I kind of liked it. I've watched that sequence a number of times, and that's kind of fun. I dig it. She got real close to being toast.
Yeah,
you know, so
it gave Frankie
Adams some work to do.
Second question: favorite scenes in dialogue.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like we could like jump to that. I will mention like a couple other like quick things that I had notes on for the first question. So we have Aaron, right? Like, he's like outright basically trying to get Avasarala to go down for the stuff that he did. I don't think he went quite that far in the book. Like, he was obviously working against her. You know, he did similar stuff, but like actually saying to the Secretary General, like, yeah, she's got a shadow government, all that. Like, he's, you know, so they just like up that a little bit.
Says the man with the shadow government.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't think he went quite that far in the book, but and then I think this is a big season where we start to see like Drummer, you know, really being played up. So she's like in this episode much more of like a foil for Fred, and like just being enhanced as a character. So that's new. And then we already did mention like Alex and his like stuff with his kid, like that's added.
Which in the book he doesn't even know the kid exists.
I don't Does the kid
the book says he has a son that he didn't know exists.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He doesn't know. Okay,
I think
so
that was an Avasarala chapter.
yeah,
That
that
says
yeah.
that.
Oh, Kitty.
Kitty is back.
But so again, like I think it just makes sense to have characterization. Like Naomi and Alex and Amos have more characterization at this point than they had in the books because they weren't POV characters this early. Spoiler, they are later. Oh, okay. Now we just talked about the kitty.
Beautiful kitty.
Yeah, join
Very.
the
What are we
chat.
at next?
Question 2.
Yeah, favorite
Yes.
scenes and or dialogues
Okay.
in the episode.
Does the cat have a favorite scene or dialogue?
Probably the suffering scene.
Yeah.
Just like you. Must be your cat.
No, I mean that's straight up the cat's favorite scene. Is
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
watching him suffer.
Is that your favorite too, Max?
It's up there.
Okay. What was number 1?
Say that was pretty up there. Holding with the coffee machine was pretty good.
Oh, that was good. I like that too.
Oh, that's right. That was this. I almost forgot that was this episode.
Well,
Even though I've watched it like 5 times.
Prax has the best line where he's just like, "You should try tea." Like that's so good.
He has some good lines this episode.
Yeah. I love Prax. Yeah.
And then
I
John's probably gonna hate me for mentioning it. The scene where she's getting out of her power armor suit.
Yeah.
What about it?
Just the awesomeness of it.
Yeah.
I liked it. You forget. I want to set a Goliath Mark III. You know, you have no idea how badly I want a fully operational Goliath Mark III power armor suit.
Look, any scene with like Bobby and Avasarala like is great because they just have like the banter, and I always enjoy the two of them. So yes, I'm all for it.
I think that's probably had to have been one of the best. I can only imagine how awesome the chemistry reads were between Shoray and Frankie when she was being auditioned.
Yeah,
I'm sure they had to have done chemistry reads between those two because it works so well.
Although I don't know. I mean, maybe they did, but I remember how. I remember it must have been on like the podcast I listened to. Sometimes they were talking about how hard it was to cast Bobby, and so I don't know. Maybe once they just found Frankie, they were like, "She's it," because it was really hard to cast her.
Okay. Sorry about Discord. I forgot to disconnect Discord.
Oh, that's okay.
There it is. My favorite scene is probably Fred and Drummer in the bar. Fred trying to talk her into going to, the gist of the conversation was, will you go rescue or go retrieve, salvage the Nauvoo? And he's like, will you go? And she had the best line. Can I finish my drink first?
That was good too.
And I was just like, that. I chuckled. I giggle. Every time I've watched that, it just. Drummer is one of my favorite characters on this show. I think
definitely.
Last time we talked about this show, I hadn't seen nearly as much of Drummer. Recent, I didn't have as much recent viewing of Drummer. I'd seen every episode, but yeah, she's working her way up there. She might be in my top 5 favorite characters of The Expanse. Although the season is a little confusing with her because she's like 4 different characters this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably get into that, but
Bull, and there was somebody else there. I realized, that was Drummer's doing that too.
I mean, they really do like condense so many book characters into her. But I mean, I have a lot to say about that, but more later when she like starts taking over like Bull's storyline and stuff. But yeah. Anyway. So I would say my favorite scene I wanted to highlight was like the very opening scene, like the sequence of like kind of pulling out from Earth and like moving further away from Earth, and the news feeds and how they change as we go through it, and then like going right into the UN scene. I like this because it's a very like this is a TV show scene. This is a kind of scene that you do in a TV show. not in a book. And so I like that they're kind of like thinking about how to show things that you wouldn't do it that way in the book at all. And then the other thing I liked about it is once we get into the scene in the UN, what's noteworthy about it is like Avasarala is not there. So like in the book, we're not getting a scene like that because for that plot line, we stay with Avasarala. She's not in that room, so we don't get that scene. But in the show, you don't have to do that. And what I liked about it is we can see her influence by what happens when she's not there. Right? If she were in that room, it would not have gone that way, but she's not there. And so this is the way it goes. And so I think that kind of highlights what kind of influence, what kind of role Avasarala plays with her absence. Again, you can't do that in the book because we're staying with her POV in that plot line. We're not going to suddenly jump to Aaron Wright's POV. So I like that. But, you know, it just kind of added some things that we wouldn't get in the book just because of the nature of the way the books are written.
Game of Thrones did a lot of that, you know, because you know, and they had a book that had the same restriction on POV.
Right. And that's typically the case for books. I mean, even books that have, you know, a handful of POV characters, which The Expanse generally does, you're not going to, it's still too much to expect the authors to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to throw in one random, you know, middle of the book POV from Sadenvir Aaron Wright. Like they're just not going to do it, you know. So so you don't get things like that. And it doesn't make it bad. It just gives you opportunities, you know. And again, the sort of the visual of moving through the solar system and the feeds changing to like, you know, here's the Earth feed, here's the Martian feed, here's the Belt feed. It's cool. And it's just a great sequence in a TV show that wouldn't play on a page.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't even know how I would go about trying to recreate that on page. That
I mean, it wouldn't be the same because like it wouldn't flow as nicely, right? Because it's like the visual tied with the audio. It just wouldn't flow in the same way.
Especially in a mostly hard science fiction show that doesn't break the light barrier.
Yeah, I mean, you could just do like very bare text of here's the Earth feed and then switch to here's the Martian feed and switch to here's the Belter feed.
Yeah, it would have to be somebody watching, you know, like a show or listening to a feed and changing.
Yeah, you could do that.
It just,
but it's
the way it worked on the show, it
tight.
just and it's not as visually
interesting.
Yeah, just great. It was visually nice to look at.
Yep.
Even if not scientifically accurate, who cares? It's fucking visuals. So,
exactly.
And we've gotten rid of. I don't know if you've heard. We gotten rid of our rule against the F-bomb. So if it comes out, it comes out.
All right. Yeah. Good.
So,
I mean,
there was one night we did an episode. I was editing it. Everybody but me said "fuck" once.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna channel Queen of Earth. You know, not that way. But anyway, and Avasarala, just let it fly. Okay. So.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway.
Just avoid the C words.
For scenes or quotes.
I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
Because we're kind of heading towards territory of the next question of how did the quality of cinematography, special effects, sound effects, music, for the episode.
Definitely.
Visually, it was stunning. It's always visually stunning. Even if in some episodes you have to crank the brightness up a little.
I'd say the effects for the majority of the episode were great, but there's one spot. There's actually one area that you liked, Glenn, that I was actually kind of disappointed in. It didn't keep up in 2024.
Okay.
And that was the spacewalk.
Yeah.
In 2024, that spacewalk scene did not keep up with our graphics.
Okay.
Back when it first aired, that was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But today, it didn't keep up. But her suit coming off still keeps up fantastic.
Yeah. I still like the spacewalk scene. I mean, to me, that whole thing was still cool. Like, does it look, I mean, maybe it doesn't look perfect, but like, I think it's just the coolness factor of like, we're seeing the ship from different angles and like, we're kind of following her around. And I just enjoy that we get to see something like that. Like even if it doesn't look pristine,
Like it looked
it's
great,
just
but
like
there's like
the concept of it. But yeah.
it looked
I-
great, but
I-
like I could tell it was CG, and that's what broke that immersion.
Right.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah.
I do kind of, part of me wishes we had seen the Guanxian painted as a mural on its side because Bobby was standing on there. She could make out she was standing on grass and a hoof of a horse.
Ugh,
So all we
yeah.
know is there was horses but it was painted. And just the fact that Jules Pierre Mao spent the money to paint his yacht, of which almost nobody will ever see.
Yeah.
I just think it would have hit home his wealth another shot, especially having, even if it's just something we see, it's not pointed out by by dialogue or by anything. It's just something we see her running across. I think that would have been kind of neat. But
it was
hey,
mentioned in the book. Yeah. I mean, like it's just a detail there. Yeah.
But it goes to show the level of waste of money that Jules Pierre Mao is willing to go to. One thing I did love, I always like it. I've come to the conclusion that the most used effect on this show has got to be the sound of mag boots walking.
Yeah.
It's a constant click, click. And I don't know if they are wearing boots that make that noise on set or if that's done by a Foley artist or a digital sound mixer.
Yeah, I really doubt they're picking that up on mic or anything.
Adding that in manually it's got to be time consuming.
Yeah.
Very time consuming.
Well, that's a good point, though. I don't notice it, but because it just it becomes background noise. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it just. What others? I do have a question, and maybe you guys can help me figure this out. I keep watching that sequence where the Razorback separates and launches and takes off from the Guanxian. And you see the ship, separate from the nose. It stays there, and then it turns on its thrusters and falls back before taking off. I couldn't see anything still holding it in place there. The Guanxian was under thrust, so it should have just flown right past. Could you guys see anything, any kind of scaffolding, anything holding the Razorback to the yacht when that in that sequence?
I don't really look for stuff like that because
it bugged me because it should have been falling back a lot faster than that, and just usually that's the kind of thing this show's good about. That's why I'm assuming there must have been something I couldn't see on my screen. So yeah, I see. Well, Mitch liked the special effect.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Overall,
I enjoyed it.
I did too.
I forgot I could show his Mitch's things here.
Interior of the Razorback. Yeah.
And I think you're the only one who has that.
Yep. I totally forgot I could just click these buttons.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks for commenting, Mitch. Glad to have you here, Older's Ears. So, yeah. I was puzzled if I missed something in that shot. It's not a complaint. It's not a complaint.
I wasn't really looking closely.
A puzzlement.
So couldn't tell you. I don't know. But, yeah.
I think we should move on to best worst actors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Best worst actor.
I don't have a worst.
Coffee pot.
No, I never. The coffee pot. Hey, the coffee pot had a hard night. All right, that was a tough scene.
Yeah, it really it had a hard time just sitting there and then being picked up and slammed around.
Yeah,
he was just doing his job and he destroyed it. Nobody loved it.
Exactly. I mean, he really must have a love-hate relationship with that thing because he can't live without it, and yeah, he's taking out all his aggression on it. It's not cool. Not cool.
You should try tea.
He should. He should try tea.
So
I never have a worst, but yeah, because the actors.
So should we get our?
No, that's not true.
Zero. Yeah.
There's the one he plays lovely character, but he himself is a total jerk, so he's just always in the worst spot. We don't need to mention him.
Oh, he who shall not be named?
Yeah. The one who
my favorite character. The
Yes,
pilot?
your favorite character who's played by a really
By the biggest jerk
Yeah.
on the show. Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm
apparently.
being nice.
Okay.
I'm being extremely nice
Very
calling him a
nice.
jerk.
Yeah, could call him a
So
lot worse. This is the time for
this
an
being
F-bomb.
this being the Expanse, we've got our person in zero place because she's always top actor on the show, and that would be Shora Agdashloo. Let's see if I can share a picture of her. I don't know if I can do this. No, I have to go. I have to do this. Oh, and I can't. I'm going to have to show part of my screen before it. Now is that showing? Did it work?
Oh, yes. Well, no, that's not Shorey. It's
No,
something,
it's
but
not.
it's not Shorey.
Here's
Oh,
Shore.
there you go. There you go. It's also
There
like
she is.
to me, it looks like super
it dark?
small in the middle of the screen. Like it's not
Yeah, it's
covered.
Oh.
supposed to be kind of in the middle of the screen.
Okay. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if that's how it was supposed to look. All right, cool.
Okay, let me get that down. We'll have to figure out another way of doing that, or I'll just send all the pictures to Max and let Max figure it out
Yeah.
because he
poor
probably
Max.
has better access. He's the man in the chair.
I know. That's what you get for being the man in the chair, I guess.
It's better than the Wicked Man. So, who would you guys pick for? Did you guys have just one person?
I mean, yeah. I mean, for myself this time, I did just pick one. Let me see if I can, if it'll let me. Okay, yeah. Let's see if it's gonna let me select a tab. No, it doesn't like it either. So that's annoying. Yeah, it's only letting me share my entire screen. So it's the same kind of thing you had. So anyway, it doesn't really work for me either. But yeah, so my actor for this episode was Kara G as drummer, because I feel, again, this is probably the first episode where I think she's having more to do. And, we kind of see her have, like a real tense scene with Fred Johnson. Like I said, she's kind of like becoming his foil. And this is a season where she really does start absorbing a lot of other characters. And this is all, background stuff from listening to Ty Frank on his podcast. But Kara G is just that good of an actress that they expanded her role, kind of created her more of a character in the show because she's that good. So they could have gone in different directions with how they adapt these characters. But she's that good that they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna basically give everything we can to her. And it's a smart decision because she's fantastic.
She is awesome. And that scene, I know she wasn't doing nearly as many, crunches or whatever you call those, where she was hanging and then, but that was just that. I mean, salmon ladder, but that was still impressive as hell. And I'm just like,
oh yeah,
I would not want to make her mad.
And, I mean, that's a character moment too, that like she's obviously injured, but she's choosing to do that, right? Like this tells you a lot about her character. So yeah.
Max, who did you have?
Hold on. Let's try something here.
Let me see if it will let me pick that. Oh, no, it won't let me pick that app either.
Sorry, I was trying to share. There.
It won't let me use my Photoshop type program either. It won't pick that. I don't know why.
Annoying.
Yeah. So I will close that.
You guys can see Kara G there?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, okay. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. See her in the tiny little shot.
Yep. Oh, it's supposed to be in the middle of the screen.
Okay.
Right.
Boy. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, who'd you have?
I was just gonna say Frankie.
Frankie
in this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, she's always great as Bobby.
Hit your tits and pucker up. Time to peel the paint. I love that. I love that. I think that's my second favorite line, and that's what that first picture I pulled up was. That's what that was just the shot with the subtitles of her saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Frankie Adams is amazing. And
Yeah, she's
my number
perfect for.
3.
Mhm.
She's my number 3 on this. Yeah, she's perfect because you're not going to find a 6'7" woman who can act.
No, I
Like,
mean
not
she's
likely
big
to
enough.
find a 6'7"
She's
woman
big enough. She's
can act.
got like the right like kind of physicality. And
Yeah,
but she's a
because
great
2
actress.
meters is scary tall. I had a friend who was 6'7", and he's just massive standing next to me, and it's just like
Yeah.
it's like a mountain
Yeah,
standing next to you.
it's very different. Yeah, standing next to someone that tall. I have as well.
Yeah, it's just,
not normal.
especially when they're broad too.
Yeah, so she's built
Ooh,
too.
you got bigger, yeah. But Frankie is she is probably one of the best possible casting choices this show could make, I think.
Definitely.
My number 2, I'm not going to try with the pictures because that just kills time, is Terry Chen as Prax.
Yeah.
His work on this show just reminds me how much range he's got, because like I said before, most of the other characters I've seen him play were kind of badasses, like they would have whooped Amos's ass and then probably taken Bobby out too,
Okay.
without her armor. And here he's playing the absolute opposite.
Soft buttons.
Yeah, and he's great. But my number 1 for the episode, and it goes back to the scene with him and Sorrento Gillis, is Sean Doyle as out of Aaron Wright.
He's good.
He's just so chilling, and there's just some I notice subtle little things that his face does, when like almost smirking at times when things are going his way, but to such a small extent you can't even really be sure if is that just my imagination that he's got like a tenth of a smirk on his face and nobody else is noticing it, or am I just wishing it was there? But I think it's the guy just does some great work, and this isn't the only time I've seen him do great work. I was really surprised to see him playing another very unlikable character over on one of the Star Trek series for a while there. It was Star Trek Discovery. He was on a season or 2 of that. A very unlikable, but also at times a lot more likable, because there's nothing really likable about Aaron Wright, in my opinion, book or show.
No, but he seems human, and I think that's the strength of the actor, right? He's not likable, but he doesn't seem like he seems like a person. He seems like a human, like you understand like that people do things like what he's doing, and he's not like a sociopathic kind of or
like
psychopathic
Jules
kind
Pierre.
or
Strickland.
Any of these people who are like directly messing around with the protomolecule, they kind of make those characters more like like there's something broken inside of them, and he seems very human, Aaron Wright. Not a good guy, not likable, but very human.
And to be honest, I don't like Sorrento Gillis either. I think he's a wet rag.
Well, I mean, what does Starla call him in the books? I don't know if she does in the show too, but
bobblehead.
The bobblehead, yeah, the bobblehead.
Yes, yeah. He's a bobblehead. I told him to his face.
It's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that comes across. He comes across like a bobblehead.
I'm not sure I like the actor either. He's too. I don't know. Just it's not that I don't like the actor for the role.
He works fine.
It's just the actor makes me dislike Sorrento Gillis more than I did in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
maybe that's good.
R.I.P. coffee.
Yeah, I think we gotta have a little moment of silence for the coffee machine.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
Mitch has got some nice comments.
I was gonna make a joke about how it was very out of character for Holden to damage the almighty coffee machine, but I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah.
Anyway, anybody else who wanted to mention for cast?
Yeah, Theo was a good character. That had to have been the junior electrician. If you didn't catch his
Oh
name,
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
twice it was used in
yeah, yeah,
any episodes.
yeah.
He was, for a small part, he got like 2 or 3 episodes out of
Yeah.
this. So
I mean, there
yeah.
was a character like that in the book, right? I seem to remember there being someone like that, but yeah. If believe Frank, yeah, Mitch is saying believe Frankie was okay almost as soon as they saw her. That's what I thought as well, because my understanding was they had such a hard time casting for Bobby because again, they want someone of a certain physicality that's very hard to come by. So like you're not going to find like a ton of actors out there who match, the kind of like she's supposed to be
Right.
very huge and like Polynesian kind of,
And good
background.
looking.
Yeah, attractive and large. And so it's a very specific thing they're looking for. And it's not like they're going to have like a ton of people who are going to fit that. So yeah, I think it's
That's
once
why we
they
didn't
like,
get that's why we didn't get a red-haired 6'5" Randall Thor. We got a 6'3" Randall Thor because 6'3" is a little easier to attain when you're casting than a 6'5" or taller.
Yeah, and so Frankie being too small for Bobby for how she's described, yeah, I mean that's probably true.
She's
but this
Alex's
is like
height.
this is a case where you have to like weigh like okay, but she's a good actress, right? Like she has this she's not a small person. She is, she can believably play that even though she's not as big as she's supposed to be, but she's a good actress, and so that's better than casting someone who only checks the physicality boxes.
Like with Christiana Sorella, she's described as really, really tiny. And Shora Agnesloo is not really, really, really tiny.
Right. She's supposed to be
not
tiny.
Like super short and gray haired.
Older, gray haired, and Indian. Which Soray's not either. Yeah. Right.
She's Iranian.
I'm not going to quibble about any of that because Shora is fantastic. So
she's the fucking goddess of this show.
She's amazing. So yeah. We'll take it.
Definitely.
All right, question 5.
Is the alien episode themes in this episode? Did it capture any themes present in the books, or did they have its own themes?
All right.
You guys?
Max, I mean, I have stuff, but I don't know if Max wants to start us off so he can get some words in.
I don't know.
No?
Is drama a theme?
It can be. Just maybe in this context.
Okay. I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier because I think the scene where they show Prax coming up for the rename of the Roci and talking about Cortana, is that what it is? But anyway, the pine.
Cortana. Pinus Cortana.
Yeah, Cortana. That I think exemplifies the strongest theme for me, which is the idea that like destruction is part of growth and rebirth. So, I mean, this is something that I think, see more in the season as well, but it's, it's being introduced here with that more directly. We're seeing it, I think, a bit with the crew on the Roci. We're not fully playing the theme out in this episode, but we see them, they're kind of like breaking down here a bit. And then I think they are ultimately going to find this new purpose, helping Prax find May. So I think like the theme is just kind of being introduced there, but it's going to end up being a strong theme in the season, and it's definitely introduced in this episode. Other little hints of it, the Nauvoo is mentioned, and the idea of like sort of turning it into a warship for the belt. So again, repurposing it, taking it from one thing, transforming it to another. And then the protomolecule itself basically does that, right? Like it breaks things down and then repurposes them. So I think that's a big, big theme.
Yeah, definitely. I hadn't picked up on that one, but very good on that. Yeah, it's kind of obvious now that you mention it. The ones I really picked up on were just really basic, to be honest. Like there was a lot of lies versus honesty going on all over the place. I mean, especially lies whenever Aaronwright opened his mouth. Oh, look at the kitty again. That is such a pretty cat.
Yes.
Trust. There's a level of trust that they're trying to build with each other on the Rossi crew, or the Penis Cortada crew, I should say. Theme of war is there as always. Don't see as much of the racism as this show normally has, but it's that's one that I usually spot on the show. And then love and family. I mean, family so much between, Prax and his search for May, and family amongst the Rossi crew, the family that Amos right at this episode was denying existed. We were just lucky on our drawing straws, he says. So that's pretty much what I ended up with. I didn't really, I was focusing on other stuff at the time and probably didn't put as much work into looking for themes as I should have, or I usually do.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for me, it was that, and that's, I think, a big reason why that Prax and Naomi scene is in there, because I think that really helps articulate that theme. And, it's the start of the season. So like I said, I think that theme is something that's going to play out even more throughout the season. It's not like an episode specific theme, but I see it there. And I think it helps kind of spell it out for us a little bit, right? That we have to burn things down a bit before we can rebuild something new out of it.
There was a comment you made at the beginning of the live about was it Holden acting like Miller?
Yeah.
And I believe when I watched this episode, the next episode is where a certain scene happens. Spoilers with Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're saying he's starting to act like Miller, that's kind of relevant.
Yeah. I mean, that's a real theme in the book, too. Like the influence that Miller has had on Holden, like other people the real Miller having influence on Holden, and other people commenting on it, like when he's sort of behaving like Miller, or sometimes Holden having thoughts that he knows are very similar to what Miller would say. I definitely think
not this episode, but
no,
next episode we start getting into that.
Yeah.
But kind of sneaking forward a bit, we can kind of see how this guy start developing.
Yeah. And that, again, I don't think is in this episode, but I think that whole bit about the Miller influence on Holden thing kind of plays into a sort of bigger theme for Holden, which is how is he going to evolve as a character? Because he starts off super idealistic, like the ultimate idealist, and we kind of see what sort of problems can be caused by idealism taken to an extreme. And then Miller is very cynical, extreme cynic, so very different. And how is Miller gonna, how is Holden gonna evolve past his extreme idealism without going the opposite and flipping too far towards Miller? So that's kind of a big character development thing for him, I think. But I didn't see it that much in this episode either.
I know in the books we definitely start seeing Holden act more like Miller.
Yeah.
But we don't really see Miller like that in the book at this point.
No, that comes later. Yeah.
I don't think we even see Miller in the book at that point.
He's not in book 2.
See Miller in this. No, he's not in book 2.
He's not in book 2 at all. Yeah.
So they really sneak that forward in the show.
I think I think I'd forgotten that happened so early, but it's probably because this season does get into book 3 material. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes sense that they're not oh, well, let's just drop that in mid-season. Let's bring it forward. Kind of
like how gets into it. It does all of books. Well, as much of book 3 as they ever cover.
You're right. It's basically book. Yeah, you're right. So it's part of book 2 and all of book 3 is this season. And that's a good point. You're right. But they did a similar kind of thing in season 2, where they're still wrapping up book 1 material, but from the beginning, they still have like Bobby at the beginning, and because they don't want to wait. And they're like, they give her more setup rather than having her drop in. Well,
it's just what they do is they're really just starting her storyline early,
right? But I think it makes sense, not to
they don't really add much to Bobby's storyline. They just started it a lot earlier.
Yeah, I mean, my point is just like when you are doing these weird seasons where you start the season with like the middle of a book material, and then you move into the next book. Whatever is going to be important in that next book that would normally start mid-season, they're like, okay, let's just bring that element forward to the beginning of the season so that it doesn't feel as jarring when we all of a sudden have like Bobby show up mid-season 2, or in this case have, I guess, Miller show up like mid season 3, would just kind of have him in most of the season. Oh, okay. We're vamping. All right. I totally lost what we were saying, but anyway.
I've got a train.
Oh, okay. I can't really even hear that, but maybe it does come across. But anyhow, so yeah. I don't know. I didn't really have anything else on themes, but
no, I muted myself, so that's why you didn't hear it most of the time. I heard it coming.
Oh, okay.
It should be done. I can hear it moving, but it's not shouting its siren off or horn off, whatever the heck it's called. Anything else you wanted to bring up from about the episode or this segment of the books, you guys?
No.
I know it's been a little sloppy tonight, but
I didn't think that was too bad. Other than I think Max, didn't get to talk as much because he's doing all his technical stuff, and you and I don't shut up. But other than that, I think we did.
Yeah, I know. So
that's all right.
But thank you for joining us tonight, Rebecca. It's good to have you back, especially talking The Expanse. I've missed this.
Love it. Yeah.
Thank you guys at home for watching. Those watching us live, thank you. We appreciate it. Norman Guard and Mitch, everybody, thank you. And hey, Bill, when you do watch us eventually, thanks for hanging out in chat. Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks for watching the replay. And please come back next Sunday night, 9:30, as we discuss episode 302. What's the title? Anybody know? I guess we don't. We'll have that next week. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to be awesome.